Welcome to the Bewarecast, where I teach you about the things that you need to beware of. The ocean remains Earth's final frontier, a vast, unexplored abyss hiding creatures beyond human comprehension. But what if something far older than mankind dwelled in the depths, something intelligent, ancient, and inhuman? Today, we'll dive into the eerie world of the Deep Ones, the amphibious beings from H.P. Lovecraft's The Shadow over Innsmouth. Could such creatures exist in reality? How would their biology function? And what terrifying implications does their presence hold for humanity? Let's explore. The Deep Ones are an ancient, amphibious race that has existed for eons, possibly predating humanity itself. But where did they come from? Some interpretations suggest that the Deep Ones are not native to Earth at all, but come from another world or dimension. If so, their physiology may have evolved under entirely different environmental conditions, making their adaptations unlike anything found in Earth's evolutionary history. Alternatively, they could be the result of an evolutionary path parallel to humanity. If early amphibians evolved intelligence instead of terrestrial mammals, they might have become the dominant species of the deep, developing advanced societies beneath the waves. Their genetic compatibility with humans, as seen in the hybrid offspring of Innsmouth, hints at a shared evolutionary ancestor, possibly dating back to the earliest vertebrate life. Another possibility is that the Deep Ones were once human, or a related species, modified through unnatural means, either by an ancient civilization experimenting with bioengineering, or by the influence of eldritch forces, such as their god, Dagon. This could explain their ability to interbreed with humans, something that is biologically rare between species, but not impossible in cases of genetic engineering. The Deep Ones are uniquely adapted for life in both the ocean and on land, combining traits from deep-sea creatures, amphibians, and humanoids. Like amphibians, they likely possess a dual respiratory system, allowing them to extract oxygen both from water and air. This could resemble the system found in lungfish or axolotls, enabling them to remain submerged indefinitely, but also venture onto land when needed. If they live in the deep ocean, their bodies would need to withstand extreme pressures. Deep-sea organisms often possess flexible, compressible structures to avoid being crushed, so the Deep Ones may have a similar adaptation, possibly reinforced with dense, cartilage-like bone to endure both deep-sea pressures and surface environments. The deep ocean is cold, often near freezing. The Deep Ones may possess antifreeze proteins in their blood, similar to ice fish, preventing ice crystal formation in their bodies. Alternatively, they could generate heat internally, much like certain species of sharks and deep-sea fish. Their webbed appendages suggest powerful swimming abilities, akin to frogs or otters, allowing them to move swiftly through the water. Their musculature would likely be optimized for bursts of speed rather than endurance, making them formidable ambush predators. Unlike mindless deep-sea predators, the Deep Ones are an intelligent, organized civilization. The Deep Ones have structured settlements, often in submerged cities beneath the ocean. Their architecture, likely composed of cyclopean stone structures resistant to water pressure, suggests knowledge of engineering far beyond human history. Sound travels differently underwater, and if the Deep Ones communicate while submerged, their language may rely on a system similar to whale songs or dolphin clicks, long-distance, low-frequency sounds capable of carrying vast distances. When speaking with humans, they use guttural, croaking voices, suggesting a hybrid vocal system capable of functioning both underwater and in air. The Deep Ones are deeply religious, worshipping deities such as Dagon and Mother Hydra, as well as the cosmic entity Cthulhu. Their rituals suggest an awareness of cosmic horrors beyond human understanding, possibly hinting at knowledge of ancient forces that predate Earth's civilizations. The Deep Ones are known to interbreed with humans, creating hybrid offspring that slowly transform over time. This suggests a highly flexible genome, allowing their DNA to integrate with human genetics, a rare but not impossible phenomenon. Some real-world examples of interspecies hybridization exist, such as the liger, a lion-tiger hybrid, or the mule, a horse-donkey hybrid. The Deep One's ability to create fertile offspring suggests a far more radical biological capability. One of the most disturbing aspects of the Deep Ones is their hybridization with humans. Children born from human Deep One unions appear normal at first, but undergo gradual transformation as they age, developing scales, webbed fingers, and amphibious traits. This could indicate a latent genetic trigger that activates at a certain stage in life, much like how some amphibians undergo metamorphosis from tadpoles to adults. Deep Ones are seemingly immortal, never aging beyond a certain point. This suggests a form of biological immortality similar to certain species of jellyfish, which can revert to an earlier life stage instead of dying from old age. Their regenerative abilities may allow them to repair cellular damage indefinitely, preventing the typical effects of aging. It's unclear whether the Deep Ones raise their young in a familial sense, or if hybrids are simply claimed by the race once they mature. If they operate in a hive-like structure, offspring might be assimilated into their culture once their transformation is complete. For all of their strengths, the Deep Ones are not invincible. While they can survive on land, they are primarily water dwellers. Extended periods away from the ocean may weaken them as their bodies are adapted for underwater environments. Their skin may require constant moisture to prevent drying out, much like amphibians. Their society appears deeply dependent on worship of their deities too. If their gods, or their connection to them, were severed, it could disrupt their civilization or cause severe internal strife. While physically superior to humans, the Deep Ones lack advanced technology. If humanity ever became fully aware of their presence, a large-scale military engagement could force them back into the depths, assuming they do not have some unknown weapon or cosmic ally at their disposal. Also, if their eyes are adapted for deep-sea vision, they may be sensitive to bright lights, making them vulnerable in well-lit environments. Some deep-sea creatures experience retinal damage when exposed to sudden brightness, and the Deep Ones could also share this weakness. These horrific creatures represent a terrifying possibility, an intelligent, immortal species lurking in the ocean, hidden just beyond our reach. Whether they evolved naturally or were shaped by eldritch forces, their existence challenges everything we understand about life on Earth. Could such creatures really exist? And if so, have they already made contact with humanity? Let me know what you think in the comments below. In H.P. Lovecraft's The Colour Out of Space, an alien entity arrives on Earth, not as a physical creature, but as something far more incomprehensible. A colour outside the visible spectrum, a being of pure energy, corrupting everything it touches. But could such a life form exist? Today we'll venture into the unknown, exploring the speculative biology and physics behind the colour out of space. The colour isn't a traditional creature. It doesn't have a physical form, organs, or even a conventional biological structure. Instead, it seems to exist as a form of energy or radiation, capable of interacting with matter in ways we can barely comprehend. In the story, it arrives on Earth via a meteorite, seeping into the soil and water, warping life at a cellular and genetic level. Plants grow twisted and malformed, animals suffer grotesque mutations, and humans slowly wither away, both physically and mentally. It's described as a colour, a hue that doesn't exist within our visible light spectrum. This suggests it might be ultraviolet, infrared, or even a form of radiation that we simply can't perceive. But could such an entity function biologically, if we could even call it biology? Most life that we know of is carbon-based, relying on complex chemical reactions within cells. But theoretically, energy-based life forms could exist under the right conditions. One possibility is that the colour is a form of photonic life. Photons are particles of light that carry energy, and a sufficiently advanced or complex photonic structure might, in theory, achieve self-sustaining patterns, something like an energy brain. Alternatively, the colour might exist as an exotic form of plasma, ionized gas, held together by electromagnetic fields. Such a structure could potentially interact with matter in ways that mimic biological processes, corrupting DNA and altering the chemistry of organic life. This would explain why the colour seems to feed on the vitality of living organisms, draining energy and reducing them to husks. The colour's most horrifying trait is its ability to corrupt living organisms. But how could energy or radiation warp life so drastically? One theory is that the colour interacts with DNA, breaking down or rearranging genetic material. Certain types of radiation, like gamma rays, are already known to cause mutations, but the colour seems to do this in a controlled, almost purposeful way, as though it understands the blueprints of life itself. It might be emitting an unknown wavelength of energy that directly targets cellular structures, disrupting normal functions, and creating grotesque new growth patterns. Another possibility is that the colour introduces alien proteins or molecular structures into the ecosystem, an invasive molecular virus that rewrites biological processes. The colour isn't just destructive, however. It seems deliberate. It spreads methodically, siphoning energy from its surroundings while avoiding quick detection. Could this indicate intelligence? Intelligence doesn't always require a brain or neurons. Complex patterns of energy or data flow, like those seen in computer networks or even ant colonies, can give rise to behaviour that seems purposeful. The colour is intelligent. It might not perceive reality in the same way we do. It might experience time differently, exist simultaneously across dimensions, or even be a fragment of something much larger, a scout, a seed, or a fragment of an interstellar ecosystem. While no known organisms resemble the colour, the universe is vast, and our understanding of physics is still growing. Certain exotic phenomena, like Bose-Einstein condensates or dark matter, hint at states of matter and energy we barely understand. It's possible that somewhere in the cosmos, under extreme conditions, perhaps near a neutron star or within interstellar plasma clouds, something like the colour could emerge naturally. Alternatively, the colour might not be a natural being at all, but a constructed one, an ancient alien weapon, experiment, or probe designed to terraform or cleanse entire worlds by breaking down and reconstituting biological matter. How would humanity respond if the colour out of space were to visit us today? First of all, containment would be nearly impossible. Radiation doesn't respect fences or walls, and an entity like the colour could seep into water supplies, soil, and even the air itself. Scientific study would be equally challenging. How do you study something you can't fully perceive? Instruments would be needed to detect non-visible wavelengths of light and unprecedented types of radiation. Ultimately, our survival might depend on isolating and neutralizing the source, possibly by creating counter-wavelengths to disrupt its energy patterns. Or it could be done by finding ways to shield organic life from its influence. The immediate response might be to establish a massive quarantine zone around the affected area, much like Chernobyl's exclusion zone. Governments would enforce strict no-entry protocols, with drones and robots used for monitoring and research to minimize human exposure. This might fail, however. If the colour can seep into water sources or spread through the air, physical barriers would ultimately prove useless, leading to containment breaches. Upon the failure of this measure, however, in desperation, humanity might resort to large-scale environmental destruction, using nuclear weapons, scorching the earth or salting the soil to eliminate the colour's corrupted influence. Again, this might fail. If the colour can adapt to energy sources or thrive in harsh conditions, such measures could spread it further or cause unintended consequences. We could also try energy deprivation strategies. If the colour relies on absorbing energy or life force, scientists might attempt to starve it by draining nearby power grids, creating barren zones, or even evacuating all living organisms from the area. The colour could potentially adapt to alternate energy sources, however, including geothermal or cosmic radiation. And also, you have to wonder just how practical moving every single living organism from an area would be. This would include all animal life, digging up all plants in the area, and even having to find a way to evacuate all present microbes and bacteria. Yes, it doesn't sound like much of a possibility to me. As it becomes increasingly clear that physical attacks on the colour won't suffice, different measures could be put into place. A personal favourite theory of mine is the psychological countermeasures that could be taken. Since the colour seems to exert a psychological toll on those exposed to it, mental health treatments might become as critical as physical countermeasures. Training programs, mindfulness techniques, and antipsychotic medications could be deployed on a mass scale. However, this too may fail. The colour's psychological effects might not be purely chemical or biological, but tied to something far more existential or metaphysical. Communication with the colour may be attempted as well. Some scientists might theorise that the colour isn't inherently hostile to us, but simply incompatible with our biology. They might attempt to establish communication through light frequencies, energy signals, or quantum entanglement. This may fail itself, however. Communication assumes mutual understanding as possible. The colour might lack the ability, or inclination, to perceive or respond to our attempts. With all this in mind, it may seem that our only remaining option is to surrender to the inevitability. In a scenario where all countermeasures fail, humanity might resign itself to adapting to life under the colour's influence. Genetic engineering or selective breeding could create humans capable of surviving under its warped biology. Such adaptation, however, could take generations, and there's no guarantee humanity could coexist with something so fundamentally alien. The colour out of space represents a terrifying concept, a life form so alien, so incompatible with our world that it defies all understanding. Whether as a naturally occurring energy being, a cosmic weapon, or something even more incomprehensible, it challenges our assumptions about what life can be. And perhaps that's the true horror of Lovecraft's creation. Not just the damage it causes to all life on Earth, but the realization that we might not even be equipped to understand it. Among H.P. Lovecraft's many strange creations, the Mi-Go stand out as particularly bizarre. First appearing in The Whisperer in Darkness, these alien entities are described as a nightmarish fusion of crustacean, insect, and fungal characteristics. Unlike many of Lovecraft's cosmic horrors, the Mi-Go are not gods or eldritch abominations, but an intelligent, spacefaring species with a clear agenda on Earth. But what exactly are these beings, and how do they function biologically? The Mi-Go are described as pinkish, winged entities roughly the size of a man, covered in crustacean-like plating, but composed of a substance more akin to fungus than true animal tissue. This unusual biology suggests a fundamentally different evolutionary path from anything found on Earth. Their exoskeleton, rather than being chitinous like an insect's, may be made of a complex fibrous material similar to mycelium, strong, lightweight, and resistant to extreme conditions. This could explain their ability to survive both in the vacuum of space and in Earth's atmosphere without issue. Their wings, though useless in an oxygen-rich environment, allow them to travel through space, suggesting some form of gravitational or radiation-based propulsion system. The Mi-Go are not mere mindless predators, but highly intelligent beings with a deep understanding of both science and the occult. They are known for their advanced surgical techniques, particularly their ability to extract and preserve human brains in specialized canisters. These brains remain fully conscious and can be transported across the cosmos, allowing human minds to experience alien worlds firsthand. This suggests an incredibly sophisticated understanding of neurology and consciousness, easily surpassing human medical science. The Mi-Go's ability to interface with human brains may hint at their own neural structure being highly adaptable, perhaps even capable of storing and processing information in a way that mimics organic thought patterns. Despite their alien nature, the Mi-Go possess the ability to communicate with humans in a way that is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. Their voices are described as buzzing or insect-like, suggesting that they do not use vocal cords in the traditional sense. Instead, they likely produce sound through a system of stridulation, similar to how crickets generate noise, or through specialized resonating structures in their bodies. Their speech is often described as having an unnatural quality, as though human words are being forced through a non-human throat. The modulation of their voices may carry multiple tones at once, creating a layered effect that is both comprehensible and deeply disturbing. Beyond verbal speech, the Mi-Go are also hinted to have telepathic abilities, at least under certain conditions. Some interpretations suggest that they can communicate directly with prepared human minds, bypassing language altogether. Whether this is a natural ability or the result of their surgical modifications remains unclear, but it further highlights their unsettling blend of biology and technology. One of the Mi-Go's most remarkable traits is their ability to travel through deep space without the need for spacecraft. Their biology appears to be perfectly suited for the vacuum of space, suggesting that they do not require oxygen or traditional sustenance. Instead, their fungal composition may allow them to enter a state of suspended animation, conserving energy for long journeys between the stars. Their wings, while useless in an atmosphere, might function as a means of propulsion in space. Some theories suggest they could generate gravitational or electromagnetic fields, allowing them to move across interstellar distances in ways that defy human understanding. The Mi-Go are not mindless monsters, but organized, purposeful entities with their own interstellar civilization. They have a vested interest in Earth, primarily for its rare minerals, but they also interact with human cults, suggesting they may have motivations beyond mere resource collection. Unlike some of Lovecraft's cosmic entities, the Mi-Go do not inspire madness simply by existing. Instead, their horror comes from their cold scientific detachment and their ability to manipulate human beings for their own ends. They serve as a reminder that, in Lovecraft's universe, even seemingly comprehensible lifeforms can be utterly alien in their intentions. The Mi-Go are a perfect example of Lovecraft's ability to create horror not from simple monsters, but from truly alien intelligences that defy human understanding. With their fusion of fungal and arthropod traits, their mastery of both science and the occult, and their disturbing ability to communicate with and manipulate humans, they remain one of the most unsettling creatures in the entire mythos. Their presence in The Whisperer in Darkness is a chilling reminder that Earth is not isolated in the cosmos. Other intelligences are watching, experimenting, and operating with motives we may never fully comprehend. The flying polyps are among the most enigmatic and terrifying beings in Lovecraft's mythos, appearing in The Shadow Out of Time. Their origins stretch back far beyond human civilization, possibly beyond even the formation of the Earth itself. According to the scattered knowledge gleaned from ancient texts and the accounts of those unfortunate enough to witness them in dreams or visions, the polyps arrived on Earth approximately 750 million years ago. At that time, Earth was already home to advanced alien civilizations, including the Elder Things and the great race of Yith. However, the flying polyps were unlike anything these beings had encountered. They were not part of the natural evolutionary history of this planet, but came from the vastness of space, likely from another, even more ancient world. The polyps immediately set themselves apart as creatures of chaos and destruction. They had no interest in building civilizations or engaging in structured societal order. Instead, they were a force of raw, uncontained malevolence, thriving on the domination and extermination of other life forms. Their arrival triggered a cosmic struggle between them and the great race of Yith, a conflict that would span millions of years and alter the course of the planet's prehistory. Describing the flying polyps is an exercise in uncertainty. Their name implies flight, but they do not fly in the conventional sense. Rather, they move through the air with an unnatural fluidity, seemingly immune to gravity. Their bodies are described as massive, amorphous, and somewhat tubular, with a form that constantly shifts and writhes as if it is only partially anchored in our physical reality. Despite their vast size, they leave only faint impressions in solid matter, which suggests that they are only partially corporeal. They have tentacle-like appendages that manifest in unpredictable ways, appearing and vanishing at will. These tendrils are believed to be their primary means of interacting with the world, used both for grasping objects and for offensive attacks. Most disturbingly, the polyps are entirely invisible to the human eye under normal circumstances. This makes them one of the most terrifying entities in the mythos, not only because of their raw destructive power, but because they can stalk their victims unseen, lurking just beyond perception. They can only be detected by the unnatural disturbances they leave in their wake, the eerie whistling of the wind, the shifting of air pressure, and the occasional inexplicable displacement of objects. Their method of communication, if any, remains unknown. They do not seem to have a spoken language, nor do they engage in meaningful interaction with other species beyond acts of violence. However, they do appear to possess a form of intelligence, operating with a sinister purpose rather than acting as mere mindless beasts. The flying polyps are among the most powerful entities to have ever walked, or floated, upon the Earth. Their abilities defy conventional physics, making them nearly impossible to contain or combat. One of their most terrifying powers is their ability to control the air itself. They can summon massive gusts of wind, creating localized cyclones capable of tearing structures apart. This mastery over the elements makes them particularly difficult to track or trap, as they can simply blast away obstacles in their path. Their ability to remain unseen grants them an enormous tactical advantage. They can move undetected, striking suddenly and with devastating force. This makes them nearly impossible to fight by conventional means, as they can eliminate threats before those threats even realize they are being targeted. Despite their apparent lack of a rigid physical form, the polyps are incredibly strong. They can demolish entire cities, reducing them to rubble in a matter of moments. Even the great race of Yith, one of the most intellectually advanced species in the mythos, was unable to destroy them entirely, instead opting to imprison them deep underground. Whether they possess a form of telepathy or some other supernatural means of sensing their surroundings is unknown, but their ability to track and hunt prey without traditional senses suggests an awareness that extends beyond the physical world. The flying polyps were not the dominant force on Earth for long. Though they initially rampaged freely, they soon came into conflict with the great race of Yith, an immensely advanced species known for their ability to transfer their consciousness across time and space. Unlike the polyps, the Yithians were builders, scholars, and historians. They sought to preserve knowledge and safeguard their civilization from destruction. The Yithians viewed the polyps as a direct threat to their survival, and a great war erupted between the two species. Using their immense intellect, the Yithians devised a plan to contain the polyps rather than destroy them. Over centuries, they constructed massive underground structures, vast and labyrinthine, designed to trap the polyps beneath the surface of the Earth. Eventually, they succeeded in sealing them away, burying them in deep subterranean cities where they would remain imprisoned for millions of years. However, the Yithians knew that the imprisonment of the polyps was not permanent. Their own prophetic visions showed them that in the far future, long after the downfall of human civilization, the polyps would rise again, freed from their underground tombs. What they will do upon their return remains a horrifying mystery. However, based on their past behavior, destruction on a vast scale seems to be very much on the cards. Despite their immense power, the flying polyps are not entirely invincible. The fact that the great race of Yith was able to imprison them suggests that they do have certain vulnerabilities. One of their key weaknesses appears to be a susceptibility to advanced forms of technology and psychic manipulation. The Yithians were able to use their superior intellect to design containment methods that effectively neutralized the polyps, at least temporarily. This implies that some form of mental control or force field technology may be effective in dealing with them. Additionally, their reliance on movement through the air could theoretically be disrupted. If they require a certain atmospheric composition or air currents to move, then altering these conditions, such as in a vacuum or an environment with extreme air pressure, might hinder their mobility. However, there is no solid evidence that this would be enough to stop them completely. Physical barriers, while not a permanent solution, have proven effective in at least containing them for extended periods. The structures built by the Yithians remained intact for millions of years, suggesting that, while they are powerful, the polyps do not possess unlimited destructive capabilities. If the polyps were ever to resurface, humanity would likely be powerless against them with our current level of tech. Our best hope would be to learn from the methods of the Yithians, developing containment strategies rather than attempting direct combat. The flying polyps represent one of Lovecraft's most disturbing themes, the idea that ancient horrors are merely sleeping beneath our feet, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Unlike other mythos creatures that lurk in distant dimensions or deep space, the polyps are already here, sealed away, but not gone. Their inevitable resurgence is a chilling prospect. When they rise again, they will find a world that has long forgotten them, completely unprepared for their wrath. Humanity, with all its technological advancements, would likely stand little chance against such an ancient and unstoppable force. The polyps embody the uncaring brutality of the universe. They do not seek dominion, knowledge, or even survival in the way other beings do. They are simply a force of destruction, unrelenting and eternal. And if the great race of Yith is correct in its predictions, one day, long after we are gone, they will rise once more to reclaim the world as their own. There are things out there that lurk beyond the confines of time and space, creatures so alien, so predatory, that merely attracting their attention can spell doom. The Hounds of Tindalos, first introduced in Frank Belknap Long's The Hounds of Tindalos, are one such horror. These unnatural beings exist outside of time, waiting for any unfortunate soul who dares to peer too deeply into the past or future. But what are they exactly, biologically speaking? How do they exist? And how might they function in a physical or metaphysical sense? Let's explore these terrifying possibilities. Descriptions of the Hounds of Tindalos are vague, adding to their mystery. They are often depicted as gaunt, emaciated creatures with unnatural, angular bodies, suggesting a form of existence that is geometric rather than organic. Their eyes burn with an otherworldly light, and their movements are said to be abrupt and unnatural, as if they are shifting through dimensions rather than moving normally. Some accounts describe them as having tendrils or mist-like forms that dissolve and reform as they traverse space. If they exist in a physical state at all, they may not conform to any biological structure we understand. The Hounds of Tindalos are believed to have an extraordinary form of perception, far beyond what we can comprehend. They do not rely on sight, sound, or smell in the way organic life does. Instead, they seem to have an innate ability to detect disturbances in time itself. Any individual who has delved too deeply into time manipulation, prophetic visions, or certain mathematical calculations may inadvertently attract their attention. Once a person is marked, the hounds can trace them with unerring accuracy, regardless of barriers, distances, or dimensions. They are not bound by linear space-time and appear to follow distortions, anomalies, or the residue left by someone who has mentally or physically touched another error. This explains why they are so feared. There is no easy way to hide from them, and they follow not a physical trail, but a conceptual one. Their exact method of attack remains mysterious, but survivors, or at least witnesses to their victims, report violent and grotesque outcomes. The hounds seem capable of phasing into reality through sharp angles, appearing suddenly in a spray of unnatural mist before descending upon their prey. Their method of killing is not simply physical. Victims are often torn apart in ways that defy conventional biology, as if their very essence has been unraveled or consumed in a way beyond human comprehension. Little is known about the true origins of the hounds. They are not biological entities in the traditional sense. Unlike conventional predators, there is no evidence of a reproductive cycle, gestation, or offspring. Instead, they may be eternal beings, existing outside the normal flow of time, or perhaps they are created through unknown means when the conditions are just right. Some occult scholars speculate that the hounds are not native to our reality at all, but instead hail from a place beyond time itself, a void of pure predation, where linear cause and effect do not exist. This could mean they are artificial constructs of some greater force or intelligence that uses them as enforcers of cosmic law. If so, what entity or force commands them? Are they merely acting upon instinct, or do they serve some unfathomable master? Alternatively, they may exist in such a fundamentally different state that human attempts to define them through biological or evolutionary frameworks are doomed to failure. Perhaps they do not reproduce because they have always existed and always will, or perhaps they are echoes of something far older than the universe itself, manifesting only when time is fractured in the right way. While the hounds are among the most terrifying entities in the mythos, they may not be entirely invincible. According to certain accounts, their reliance on angles is a key vulnerability. Because they emerge through sharp, unnatural geometries, some scholars believe that existing only within rounded or curved spaces can prevent their manifestation. For example, an entirely circular room, free of any straight edges, might prevent their entry. In some interpretations, they struggle to materialize in areas where angles are dulled or disrupted. If they require sharp, distinct lines to breach into our world, then distorting those angles, either through architecture or even physical means like smoke, fog, or fluid, might obscure their entry points. There are also suggestions that certain esoteric symbols or incantations, particularly those linked to time and dimensional stability, may provide a form of defense. Some occult texts reference rituals that seal time itself, preventing the passage of the hounds. However, these methods are poorly documented and unreliable at best. Fire has also been proposed as a potential weakness, based on the idea that the hounds exist partially in a state outside of conventional reality. Fire, which consumes and transforms matter in a way that defies temporal permanence, may be disruptive to them. However, there is no solid evidence that this would be effective, and attempting to fight a hound directly is almost certainly a doomed endeavour. Ultimately, the best defence against the hounds is to avoid attracting their attention in the first place. Those who meddle with time, particularly through unnatural or occult means, place themselves at the greatest risk. Avoiding experimentation with time travel, astral projection, or mathematical theories related to higher dimensions may be the only sure way to remain unnoticed. The Hounds of Tindalos represent one of the most terrifying concepts in Lovecraftian horror. The idea that time itself is not a safe, linear progression, but rather a fragile construct that, when broken, invites the attention of something alien and malevolent. They are not simply monsters lurking in dark places. They are cosmic enforcers of a law we cannot fully understand. They also embody one of Lovecraft's core themes, the dangers of knowledge. Many of the most intelligent and curious individuals in the mythos are doomed not by physical monsters, but by their own intellectual pursuits. The hounds do not attack at random. They target those who have glimpsed something they were never meant to see, those who have tampered with reality in ways that disturb the natural order. This makes them an especially terrifying force. They are not mindless, nor are they evil in a conventional sense. They are something worse. Inevitable. If you call them, they will come, and once they do, there is no bargaining, no reasoning, and no hope of escape. The Hounds of Tindalos are a reminder that in the grand, uncaring cosmos of Lovecraft's mythos, there are forces that operate on rules way beyond our comprehension. And if we are foolish enough to attract their gaze, we may find ourselves running not from the past or from the future, but from something far older and far more terrifying than time itself. Deep beneath Antarctica's frozen wastes, buried within ancient ruins, the remains of an alien species lie in wait. These are the Elder Things, also called the Old Ones, a race of extraterrestrial entities that once ruled the Earth long before humans, or even the dinosaurs. Described in H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness, the Elder Things are biological enigmas, possessing both plant-like and animal-like traits, five-fold radial symmetry, and an anatomy completely unlike anything in Earth's evolutionary history. But how could such a species evolve? What adaptations would they require to survive? And if they truly existed, what might their biology reveal about the nature of life itself? Today, we're diving deep into the science behind the Elder Things to speculate on their origins, adaptations, and how they might function as real organisms. The Elder Things are described as barrel-shaped entities, around 6 feet in height, with a five-fold radial symmetry, meaning they're built around a central axis with 5 repeating sections, much like a sea star. Each has 5 tentacle-like appendages at the top, functioning as both arms and sensory organs, and another set at the base, serving as legs or propulsion structures in water. One of their most striking features is their biological versatility. Unlike Earth's life forms, which are largely divided into plant and animal kingdoms, the Elder Things exhibit traits of both. Their outer casing is tough and resilient, akin to a plant's bark or an arthropod's exoskeleton. They can photosynthesize like plants, yet also consume organic matter like animals. They possess tentacle-like appendages, capable of delicate motor control, suggesting a highly evolved nervous system. This extreme adaptability suggests that their homeworld, or the environments they evolved in, must have been radically different from Earth's biosphere. If the elder things evolved naturally, their radial symmetry suggests they may have originated from an aquatic environment, much like Earth's jellyfish and sea stars. However, their ability to survive on land complicates this theory. A more plausible scenario is that they evolved in an alien ecosystem with different gravitational forces, atmospheric conditions, or biochemical requirements. Alternatively, the elder things could have been the result of directed evolution, genetic engineering by an even older species. Their ability to create life, seen in their construction of the Shoggoths, hints that they may have modified their own biology over the eons, achieving a near-perfect balance of survival traits. The elder things were able to survive in both deep-sea environments and the frigid wastelands of Antarctica, implying an impressive range of physiological adaptations. They have extreme cold resistance. Their metabolism and cell structure must be capable of functioning at sub-zero temperatures, possibly using antifreeze proteins like those found in Arctic fish. They are capable of deep-sea survival. Given their history of living in the deep oceans, they likely evolved a body structure resistant to immense pressure, with tough, flexible tissue instead of rigid bones. They are also amphibious in nature. The ability to move efficiently both in water and on land suggests a dual respiratory system capable of extracting oxygen from both air and water. These adaptations raise an interesting question. Were the elder things originally land-dwelling creatures that adapted to the ocean? Or were they aquatic beings that gradually colonized the land? Unlike most Earth organisms, the elder things were not just biologically advanced, but also technologically sophisticated. They built massive cities, developed advanced tools, and even created genetically engineered organisms, the most infamous being the Shoggoths. This level of intelligence suggests that their brain structure and cognition were fundamentally different from our own. Given their radial symmetry, it is possible that they had a distributed nervous system similar to octopuses, but even more advanced. Rather than a centralized brain, their intelligence might have been spread throughout their body, allowing for a unique form of multitasking and perception. Their written language, consisting of complex hieroglyphics, implies long-term memory and communication skills comparable to or exceeding human civilization. However, their downfall may have been their over-reliance on the Shoggoths, which ultimately rebelled against them. So, could beings like the Elder Things really exist? From a biological standpoint, some aspects of their design are plausible, while others are much more speculative. The radial symmetry is found in Earth's life, such as the previously mentioned sea stars and jellyfish, so it is possible that an intelligent species could evolve with a similar body plan. The dual plant-animal biology is unusual but not impossible. Some Earth organisms already blur these lines, such as sea slugs that photosynthesize using chloroplasts stolen from algae. The extreme adaptability that they exhibit would require an advanced and flexible genome, potentially similar to how tardigrades can survive in extreme conditions by suspending metabolism. The biggest challenge would be their size and intelligence. On Earth, radial organisms tend to be simple creatures, not advanced civilizations. But in an alien ecosystem, evolution could take a radically different path. The story of the Elder Things is ultimately a tragic one. They arrived on Earth millions of years ago, created vast civilizations, and ruled the planet long before the rise of humans. But they were eventually undone by their own creations, the Shoggoths, which rebelled and wiped out most of their species. Their ruins still remain, buried deep within Antarctica's icy expanse, waiting to be rediscovered. If such a species had existed, it raises unsettling questions. Could remnants of their technology or biology still persist somewhere on Earth? And if intelligent extraterrestrial life does exist, Could it follow a similar evolutionary trajectory, creating artificial life that ultimately leads to its own downfall? While the Elder Things may be fictional, their story serves as a warning about the dangers of unchecked genetic manipulation and the limits of even the most advanced of civilizations. The Elder Things are one of Lovecraft's most fascinating and scientifically intriguing creations. Their alien biology, intelligence, and technological prowess make them stand out as some of the most plausible extraterrestrial lifeforms in the mythos. If such creatures truly existed, they would challenge everything we know about evolution, intelligence, and life itself. And perhaps beneath the ice of Antarctica or the depths of the ocean, something not quite dead still lingers, waiting to be unearthed. Within the sprawling, mind-bending mythos inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, few entities are as alien and unsettling as the insects from Shagai. These bizarre, cephalopod-like creatures originate not from Earth, but from a distant planet called Shagai. They were introduced by Ramsey Campbell in his story The Insects from Shagai from 1964, yet have since been folded into the wider mythos with terrifying ease. In this video, we'll delve into their physiology, abilities, culture, and the horrifying implications of their presence on Earth. The insects resemble massive, beetle-like arthropods with iridescent carapaces and multiple limbs. They are vaguely insectoid, but their biology seems to blend traits from arthropods, cephalopods, and something far stranger. Their bodies include articulated limbs, tendrils for fine manipulation, and a pair of wings that allow for limited flight. Perhaps most chillingly, their heads are covered in sensitive antennae and sensory nodules. They appear to communicate through ultrasonic pulses and can perceive frequencies and energies beyond the human range. Their biology may not be carbon-based, given their ability to survive in strange atmospheric conditions and in the vacuum of space for short periods. One of the most distinctive traits of the insects is their ability to transfer their consciousness into other beings. They use crystalline devices known as mind transfer stones, which allow them to project their intelligence into human hosts. This parasitic form of possession allows them to hide among humanity, manipulating events from behind the scenes. Victims may be unaware that they are being controlled, or may experience blackouts and personality shifts. Once they have infiltrated a host, the insects gain access to human knowledge while maintaining their alien intelligence. The insects are fanatical worshippers of the great Old One Azathoth, the blind idiot god at the center of the universe. Their religion is not metaphorical or philosophical. They genuinely believe in sacrificing worlds and civilizations in honor of Azathoth. They are missionaries of entropy and madness, colonizing planets, infiltrating species, and ultimately reducing them to ruins. The temples they build are geometrically impossible, their architecture echoing the madness of non-Euclidean space. They do not perceive time or matter as humans do. For them, a ruined planet is a devotional object, an altar upon which they honor their dark god. The insects from Shagai are already among us in the mythos. Stories suggest that they have taken over isolated cults and secret cabals, working to destabilize human society from within. Their mind transfer technology makes them nearly impossible to detect. Governments, religious movements, or even entire corporations could be puppets in their grasp. Unlike brute force threats like the Deep Ones or Shoggoths, the insects are insidious. They prefer subtle influence, corruption, and slow decay. Their mastery of both alien science and metaphysical rituals gives them a terrifying edge in both physical and psychic warfare. Let us now speculate on the homeworld of the insects, namely the planet Shagai. It is quite often imagined as a place of both immense beauty and suffocating horror. an alien world utterly inhospitable to humankind, yet perfect for its native inhabitants. Described only briefly in mythos lore, Shagai has long since been destroyed by fire, but reconstructing it through speculative xenobiology offers a glimpse into a terrifyingly plausible ecosystem. The atmosphere of Shagai may have been dense and tinged with strange hues, dominated by long twilight hours under a swollen, dying star. Imagine vast fungal forests towering over the jagged terrain, with phosphorescent spores wafting lazily through the air. These would have provided both sustenance and habitat for insectile life forms, including the intelligent and manipulative insects themselves. Instead of trees, the landscape might have been dotted with enormous, tube-like fungal structures or crystal towers that grew like minerals but lived like organisms, feeding on the sun's radiation and complex soil chemistries. The gravity may have been lighter than Earth's, allowing for the tall, spindly architecture of both the planet's organic and artificial structures. Cities of the insects might have spiraled vertically into the sky, living structures fused with machine-like growths, responding to the hive's needs. Communication may have been carried on light, pheromones, or even radiation pulses, perhaps explaining the creature's ability to manipulate minds and send their consciousness across the void. The ecosystem of Shagai would have been deeply hierarchical and networked, possibly centered on vast hives or node minds, biological supercomputers sustained by the collective thoughts of the insectoids. Given their ability to flee across interstellar distances by implanting their consciousness into hosts or transmitting their minds, it's plausible that Shagai's destruction came not only from external cataclysm, but from internal hubris. A technological experiment gone awry, or perhaps even a war between rival insect factions. The fire that consumed the planet might have been solar in origin, or something far stranger. A dimensional rift, psychic backlash, or a godlike force erasing them from existence. Whatever its end, the lost world of Shagai stands in mythos lore as a cautionary tale, a nightmarish reminder of the dangers posed by minds that evolve not toward empathy or unity, but toward cold, methodical control. Despite their powers, the insects from Shagai are not invincible. Their physical bodies are vulnerable to extreme heat and may become sluggish or die in high temperatures. Ultrasonic weapons or disruptions to their communication frequencies might temporarily confuse or disable them. More importantly, disrupting their crystalline devices could prevent mind transfers, trapping them in alien or dying bodies. The insects from Shagai are a chilling example of horror at the intersection of science and mysticism. Their blend of alien biology, parasitic possession, and religious fanaticism makes them one of the most horrific species in the expanded Lovecraftian mythos. Whether lurking in cults, manipulating global events, or preparing Earth as the next sacrifice to Azathoth, they remind us that in Lovecraft's universe, the real danger is not brute force. It's the slow, insidious unraveling of everything we hold dear. In the vast, shadowed mythos of H.P. Lovecraft, few creatures are as enigmatic and terrifying as the night gaunts. First described in Lovecraft's personal letters and later given a place in his stories, these eerie beings are among the most unsettling entities to lurk within his cosmic horror universe. Unlike the grotesque and chaotic shapes of many of Lovecraft's eldritch creatures, night gaunts possess an eerie elegance with their silent flight and haunting, faceless expressions. But what are they? What is their biology, their function, and their purpose in the dark tapestry of the cosmos? Today, we'll explore the anatomy, behavior, and possible evolutionary origins of these enigmatic beings, as well as the existential horrors they represent. Night gaunts are described as humanoid creatures, but with several distinctly inhuman traits. They are tall, lean, and possess rubbery, jet-black skin, which may serve both as camouflage in the darkness of their native realms and as a natural armor. This skin could be composed of a dense, flexible material similar to the chitin found in arthropods, allowing them to be highly resistant to harm while remaining agile. One of their most defining characteristics is their complete lack of a face. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. The absence of these features raises questions about how they perceive the world. If they lack eyes, it suggests that they might navigate their surroundings through echolocation, much like bats, or through extrasensory perception, possibly detecting bioelectric fields or even thoughts. Their facelessness makes them particularly unsettling as it deprives them of any recognizable form of communication or emotion. Night gaunts are also noted to have large bat-like wings that allow them to fly in total silence. The structure of these wings suggests an impressive level of musculature and an extremely lightweight yet powerful frame, similar to the anatomy of pterosaurs. Unlike birds, which require rapid wing beats, night gaunts seem to glide effortlessly, hinting at an energy-efficient form of flight possibly aided by supernatural forces. Night gaunts are not typically portrayed as predatory in the traditional sense, but they do engage in behaviours that suggest an unsettling form of interaction with humans and other beings. They are known to capture and carry off their victims, often without warning, spiriting them away to unknown destinations. The fact that they do so without harming their captives physically suggests they may serve a purpose beyond simple predation. One of their most unnerving traits is their tendency to tickle their victims. While this may seem bizarre or even humorous at first, it carries a far more sinister implication. The act of being rendered helpless by an unseen force, stripped of autonomy and control, aligns with Lovecraft's broader themes of powerlessness against cosmic entities. Whether this behaviour serves as a means of inducing fear, testing their prey, or simply a form of cruel amusement remains unclear. Night gaunts are also described as minions of greater cosmic entities, particularly Nyarlathotep. They do not seem to possess their own independent agenda, but rather act as enforcers or messengers of higher powers, patrolling the dreamlands and ensuring that certain areas remain undisturbed. This suggests a hierarchical relationship in which they serve a function akin to supernatural sentinels. Where did the night gaunts come from? Given their association with the dreamlands, it's possible that they are not creatures of traditional biology, but rather beings that exist partially outside of conventional reality. However, if we attempt to apply evolutionary logic, we might speculate that they evolved in a highly competitive, lightless environment where silent movement and heightened non-visual senses were crucial to survival. One theory is that night gaunts are a form of highly specialized nocturnal predator that adapted to function entirely in the dark. If they evolved in an abysmal, subterranean world, their lack of facial features might indicate a reliance on telepathy or bioelectric sensitivity rather than traditional senses. Alternatively, they could be an ancient offshoot of a once physical species that gradually transcended its biological limits. This would explain their seemingly supernatural abilities, such as their ability to navigate through dreams and their uncanny flight. Perhaps they began as flesh and blood creatures but underwent an evolutionary leap, either naturally or through the influence of cosmic forces, transforming them into something closer to pure shadow. Given their alien physiology and supernatural origins, night gaunts appear to be incredibly resilient, but no creature is without vulnerabilities. The primary weakness of night gaunts may stem from their reliance on darkness and their connection to the dreamlands. If they are indeed creatures that exist partly in another dimension, it is possible that strong disruptions to their link with the dreamlands, such as intense light or extreme mental discipline, could repel them. Fire has long been a powerful tool against supernatural creatures, and while we have no record of night gaunts being harmed by flame, their seemingly soft, rubbery flesh may be vulnerable to extreme heat or physical trauma. Bladed weapons, if strong enough, might penetrate their unnatural hides. However, their agility and lack of apparent pain responses suggest that conventional weapons might not be as effective as one would hope. Psychic or magical defenses could prove useful, especially if night gaunts are bound by the eldritch laws of the Dreamlands. Some esoteric texts in the Cthulhu mythos hint that certain symbols or words of power can repel malevolent creatures. If night gaunts are summoned or controlled by greater beings, breaking the connection between them and their masters could be a key strategy in avoiding capture. Perhaps the most realistic strategy for surviving an encounter with night gaunts is to avoid their attention altogether. Since they are described as silent, patient stalkers, they may be drawn to fear or certain mental states. Maintaining rationality, suppressing panic, and avoiding dreams that take one too deep into the Dreamlands could be the best way to steer clear of their grasp. The night gaunts embody one of Lovecraft's most persistent themes, the fear of the unknown. They are creatures that defy easy categorization, with their facelessness stripping away any sense of familiarity. Their eerie silence, their ability to move unseen, and their apparent lack of independent will make them even more disturbing. The night gaunts challenge our understanding of agency and identity. They act without personal motivation, merely serving a larger, incomprehensible force. In this way, they represent a greater existential horror, the fear that we, too, may be subject to unseen cosmic influences beyond our control. Their role as minions of Nyarlathotep further cements this, as Nyarlathotep himself is a figure of deception and manipulation, a being that revels in exposing humanity to terrifying truths. There are many terrifying creatures in H.P. Lovecraft's works, but few are as unsettling as the Shoggoths. First introduced in At the Mountains of Madness, these amorphous horrors were not always the mindless monsters we see by the end of the story. Instead, they were artificially created beings, biological tools, crafted by an advanced alien race known as the Elder Things. But how would such a creature function biologically? Could a shape-shifting, hyper-adaptive being like the Shoggoth really exist? Let's explore the speculative biology, abilities, and terrifying potential of these creatures. Shoggoths are described as vast protoplasmic masses, typically 15 feet in diameter, but capable of changing size and shape at will. They are composed of a gelatinous, semi-liquid tissue that can instantly form eyes, mouths, pseudopods, and even complex limbs. This suggests that their biology is completely decentralized. Instead of having organs, bones, or a nervous system, they likely function more like giant mobile amoebas. In real life, some single-celled organisms, like slime molds and amoeba, are capable of changing shape and absorbing nutrients directly through their membranes. The Shoggoth appears to be an immensely scaled-up version of this principle, with a body made entirely of undifferentiated, adaptable cells. Their biological elasticity would give them several advantages. The first would be extreme durability. With no vital organs, they could regenerate from nearly any wound. They would also have near-infinite adaptability. They could alter their form to squeeze through tiny gaps, grow additional limbs, or mimic other creatures. And finally, they would also have the absorption-feeding ability. Instead of eating in the traditional sense, they might dissolve prey externally and absorb nutrients like some jellyfish or carnivorous bacteria. Originally, Shoggoths were obedient servitors engineered by the Elder Things to perform labour. However, over time, they developed intelligence, rebelled, and wiped out their creators. This suggests that while they began as biological machines, they evolved sentience, a fascinating concept in speculative evolution. Without a brain, they might function as distributed intelligences, where every part of their body contributes to their thinking. Some Earth species, like octopuses, already show signs of this, with neural networks spread throughout their limbs. As for communication, Lovecraft described the Shoggoths as producing disturbing echoed imitations of speech, repeating phrases that they heard from the Elder Things. This suggests that they don't have vocal cords, but might generate sounds by altering the vibrations of their gelatinous bodies, similar to how some fish produce noises by contracting their swim bladders. Their eerie mimicry could serve as 1. A hunting tool, luring prey by imitating familiar voices, 2. A psychological weapon, distributing and unsettling their victims, or 3. A crude form of language, if their intelligence had time to evolve further. This makes the Shoggoths even more terrifying. They are not just mindless monsters, but ancient, patient horrors with fragmented memories of the beings they once served. Lovecraft never explicitly states how Shoggoths reproduce, but if they are like amoebas, they might divide asexually, splitting into 2 independent organisms. Alternatively, they could absorb genetic material from prey, integrating useful traits into their own bodies. This would make them biologically immortal, capable of adapting over generations without ever truly dying. This type of horizontal gene transfer exists in bacteria today, which allows them to gain resistance to antibiotics. If Shoggoths had a similar ability, they would be capable of evolving in real time, making them nearly impossible to stop. For all their power, Shoggoths are not invincible. In At the Mountains of Madness, Lovecraft describes how they were once contained and controlled by the Elder Things, implying they have weaknesses. Possible limitations could include 1. Environmental sensitivity. If their gelatinous bodies rely on a specific temperature, pressure, or chemical balance, changes in their environment might weaken them. 2. Psychological vulnerabilities. Their mimicry of Elder Things speech suggests they might have programmed instincts that could be exploited. And 3. Predation. Just as the Shoggoths overthrew the Elder Things, something more powerful could potentially prey upon them. Given their extreme adaptability, perhaps they were engineered with a built-in predator or biological fail-safe. Another possibility is that, despite their intelligence, Shoggoths lack long-term strategic thinking. They are capable of learning and problem-solving, but without human-style reasoning, they might be more opportunistic than truly cunning. Unlike most creatures in Lovecraft's mythos, the Shoggoths are not ancient cosmic beings, but rather artificially created life forms. The Elder Things bioengineered them as slaves, designing them to be tireless workers in their undersea cities. However, over millions of years, the Shoggoths mutated, adapted, and eventually rebelled, overthrowing their masters and spreading out across the world. This raises the question, could something similar happen in real life? If human beings ever develop advanced synthetic biology, we might create organisms with programmable genetics, bioengineered life designed for labor, exploration, or even warfare. But if such creatures were left unchecked, they could evolve beyond our control, just as the Shoggoths did. In this way, Lovecraft's Shoggoths serve as a warning about playing God with biotechnology. What starts as a tool can easily become a threat. While no true Shoggoth-like organism exists on Earth, some real-world biological concepts could allow for something similar. The first would be the previously mentioned slime mold, single-celled organisms that merge into a superorganism, forming complex structures. Another is regenerative animals, Some creatures, like jellyfish and axolotls, can regenerate entire body parts, a primitive form of shape-shifting. And of course we also have intelligent cephalopods. Octopuses already display problem-solving intelligence and distributed nervous systems, much like the Shoggoth's decentralized mind. If life exists on other planets, biological adaptability could be one of the most valuable survival traits. Instead of rigid bodies with internal skeletons, alien creatures might evolve fully shape-shifting, decentralized forms, allowing them to survive extreme environments. In that sense, the Shoggoths may not be pure fantasy, but rather an extrapolation of how life might evolve under extreme conditions. The Shoggoths remain one of Lovecraft's most terrifying creations, not because they are unknowable cosmic beings, but because they are something much closer to home, the result of unchecked biological advancement, creatures that escaped control and adapted beyond comprehension. With their shape-shifting bodies, eerie intelligence, and chilling mimicry of speech, they embody the ultimate fear, the idea that something we create might evolve into our destroyer. Could such creatures exist in reality? Perhaps not yet. But in the vast cosmos where evolution takes endless forms, who's to say what nightmares might one day emerge? That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this deep dive into what is possibly one of Lovecraft's most disturbing creations, then please hit the like button and the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of future uploads. And also, please leave a comment with your thoughts down below. I'd be very interested in reading what you have to say. And also, if you're feeling generous, you can become a member of the channel or a patron on Patreon. The links are in the description. I'd also like to thank my current members and patrons, who can be seen here. This has been the Bewarecast, and I will catch you in the next video. Take care.